we're going to be building from scratch. You'll see it live, the next version of our analytics automation system as well as our hazard mitigation planning platform. So I'll be open source MIT license. This is a new model. So let's get started. Let's set up our development environment. Okay, let's get our SSH keys. So we have already installed Fedora 34. I usually like GitHub's instructions better. Let's check. Another thing is, even if you already know how to do the SSH key stuff, it's always good to check online because, for example, this cryptography algorithm changes, new advanced stuff comes. So even though you know how to do this, you've done it 100 times, it's always good to check because the latest, most secure way to do things, or maybe there's new packages available. It always changes, and that's technology. Okay, adding, we don't want to add, we want to make one. So this is legacy, you want to use a new version. I think that's elliptical. And the way I like to do the email slash thing here is I don't actually put my email address, I put my key plus whatever machine I'm on, and this helps me keep track of which SSH keys I have. So I put a little alright, so we have our SSH key, we have our public. Alright, so now let's hook that up with our GitHub. So I have a bunch of scripts slash configurations that I set up for myself. Things like, you know, Vim config, different Vim plugins I like. You can take a look at it at GitHub Invisible Road scripts. Stuff, my tmux configuration. It's all public. The virtual environment that I like to set up. As well as this was back when we did some React work. So you can clone this too if you want, have the same thing. Just be careful that when you run it, my script does overwrite your bash RC, so if you don't like to do that, you can just inspect it manually. Yeah, but you know, everybody likes their own config stuff in their own way. So you can check the README here. Whoops, I don't want to cat it. I want to run it. So what is it doing? It's let me make this a little bigger in case you can't see. It's copying my different config files. It's making some of them executable. It's creating a virtual environment. No, I think that's later. Oh, it's setting up my Vim plugins. So next one, let's set up our virtual environment. So I need to change this so I don't have to put in my sudo password every time. So I'll show you how to do that. Simple. Go into etc. Sudo. So sudo, if you're not familiar with Linux, is how shall I say? It's like a super user means there's certain commands that are powerful, which powerful means that if you use them wrong, you could mess up your system. You could make it not work. So sudo gives an element of protection, especially if a bunch of different untrusted users are using your server or logging in, and you don't want them to mess with each other. And sudo access lets you run those commands with a password, but since we're just running on our local machine, and you know, another thing is I recommend that if you work on the laptop, always encrypt your laptop. You never know if you might lose your laptop in a plane or something. So we did a sudo vim here. we're commenting out the wheel. So anybody in this wheel group, I've changed it so if you don't have to write a password. Oh, yeah. So now I try to do something, even a new session lets me do it. So this is what we're doing. We're setting up environment from scratch, starting from a vanilla Fedora 34. We installed Node because we wanted to set up our packages. Okay, so let's set up our packages, then reload our bash environment. And okay, so while it's setting up these packages that are dependencies. Okay, so let's step a step back here. We're setting up a virtual environment. Right now in the background it's running setup packages. It's installing these different pip packages that some of my Vim plugins rely on, like Flake 8, and then a bunch of Node packages that I think we use for if you do a lot of React and other JavaScript stuff, it detects errors and syntax consistency issues. Our overall experience with React is it causes a lot of unnecessary complications and also tends to really slow down the user experience. There's a lot of optimizations needed, and if you're if you're trying to make something that handles big data, I have the philosophy now that to try to use as much vanilla JS JavaScript as possible. So that's the philosophy we're aiming for in the new version of one of the things or principles we're aiming for in the new version of the platform is we're going to be using a lot of vanilla JavaScript. So what I mean by that, well, JavaScript has come a long way. There are a lot of web technologies. It's not over here, are there? Web components, vanilla JS. Web components is, I think, superior to React. I think the main point is the stuff that back like 10, 20 years ago you needed to use jQuery for. Well, you don't need to do that anymore. There's a lot of these optimized by each standard browser APIs. So that's our philosophy for the new version of the software we're creating. We're going to try to stick as much to using these vanilla highly optimized web APIs and avoid using these external patches like React when we can. These are different formats for writing a configuration file. A lot of these have been around for quite a long time, maybe even like 70s, 80s. So what is a config file format? You'll see it pretty often in Windows as well as Linux. It has the extension ini, sometimes conf or cfg, and it overall just looks like it has sections, has something, the variable name equal variable value. So it's a way of representing the configuration for your software program in a way that's understandable by a human and easily editable by a human. So here's an example of a configuration in an ini/config file format. There's two sections, owner and database, and in the owner you have a name, organization, blah. So that's ini file format. There's other formats. There's YAML, which we're using right now we started using this in 0.8 of the CrossCompute framework, and 0.9 we're going to continue supporting it, There are some issues with it though. It tends to require, it's very picky about spacing. Um, People might get a little frustrated when they, it can easily lead to errors that are not as easy to understand why the errors are happening. But, here's a well-formatted YAML file. It serves the same purpose as an ini file. The YAML file, here's a configuration. So let's say your variable receipt has this value, etc., etc. Another one is TOML, which is another config file format. You can see it kind of looks like any file format, but it has a little more rigor. So strings are surrounded by quotes. You have array support for arrays. So this will parse when you unparse it with when you parse this file, it'll come out with an array of integers, I think, or maybe string integers, yeah, because strings are clearly demarcated. And and dictionaries too. So it's kind of like a supercharged any file format, a little more structure. It's okay. We initially considered using this for the CrossCompute config file. I think we're going to make our next version 0.9 support all three of these formats, but we'll start with YAML. And eventually also you'll see maybe when we get to it in another stream, we'll write a little like human-friendly interface so that you don't have to be editing these config files to automate your report or dashboard. So I'm going to create a simple repository that'll store all these logs that we're missions that we're creating as part of this stream. And this way, the new folks out there, get to see this at least once, making a repository if you have never done this before. All right, so we'll make a public repository called missions, and these are the logs from the Twitch stream. I don't know what are logs from the live stream. Maybe Twitch live stream. Logs from the live stream. You can always change it later. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so we created our repository. Let's call it. Well, actually, they have different instructions. They tell you to git init. So we could do that too. Make our missions. We initialize a repository. So what is a mission document in our team? It's just this template that I like to use. It gives a little structure to when you're trying to work on a project. It's got a couple of sections. You can find this in our CrossCompute policies on GitHub mission template. So there's a vision. Describe your long-term goal for the project. So it could be, I don't know, like build a infrastructure planning platform. Well, no. So this should describe your vision at the end. So it's not the building, it's the how you envision it at the end. So it's like build a platform where people can simulate different infrastructure upgrades on the internet. Well, not build, but have 100 people using it or something like that in different countries. Mission. So this is the more completable short-term goal. Doesn't necessarily have to be 2 weeks, but if it's 2 weeks, you want to be finishing these missions. I've gotten in the bad habit of having a mission be like dragging on for a long time. You want to close them out. It will give you a sense of accomplishment and encourage you to do more missions. So this is who's filling this out. You're filling this out for yourself. You have some project you want to make. You want to encourage yourself to do it. Well, draft out this mission document. Plan it out. Um, you can the way you spend your time today, you could really make a difference on how your quality of life tomorrow. So this is you're envisioning what your future is, or the future is for the world or our community. You're defining some kind of well-defined mission on how you can step towards that long-term vision. And your owner, and your team, who's doing what. Maybe like user experience designer is Marta. You have business director Olga. Different folks, engineer Kashfi, Rodrigo. Different folks if you're working together on this mission. I also have a Google Docs version of it. So what I'm just explaining this template that we have. Context. This gives you a little explanation of how this short-term goal fits into your long-term goal. Time frame. Try to set your time frame either at the most a quarter, which means 3 months, or a month, maybe 2 weeks. But no bigger than a quarter. Set your goals at least quarterly. Budget, estimate how much it's going to cost you to build this. 3 objectives. So here it's important. You want to pick your goals in a way, structure them so that you can actually check them off. So what do I mean by that? You don't want to pick a goal that says something like work on project. You can't really complete that goal. So you want to say something specific like complete the image plugin or something like that. Something you can actually check off. Habits. Habits are where you detail. This came from, I think, there was an audiobook called The Power of Habit. Or that, and there was another one like stuff about what Olympians do. Or the Atomic Habits. I think that was the name of the audiobook. Atomic Habits, and there's also Power of Habit. Both pretty good books. So just set out a schedule of how you're going to achieve those objectives, and then actually put it into your Google Calendar. So this could be like, we're going to be working on the framework live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, for example. It's a habit. Log. Here's where, this is pretty important. This is where you document the steps you're taking, kind of like here. Why is this useful? So I remember somebody I used to work with at Google, he actually influenced me on this. He had one of these logs. So logs are great. If you spend, let's say, like 5 hours or 3 days figuring out some hard to figure out bug, and then you come back a year later, 6 months later, you encountered the same bug, but you don't remember how the hell you fixed it. Well, if you have a log, you can just go back and read your logs and poof, your time is saved. But if you're in the unfortunate situation where you run into the same bug you took a week to solve before, well, then you're going to have to re-spend that week to figure it out again, because most likely you're not going to remember. So that's one of the things of the log. The other nice thing about a log is it helps you, once you start making some of the productionization scripts like Ansible or Terraform or Salt, these logs help you kind of automate a lot of your tasks. Schedule I like to use to kind of record the tasks that are coming up that I want to work on next. So this helps you remember next time I come back to this session, because as much as you want to work on your whatever it is for 5 days straight without sleeping, that's not a healthy way to do it, because you got to think of this stuff like a marathon. You don't want to burn out after let's say you last 2 weeks working hell bent on something. Instead, structure it. Get in your exercise. Get in your swimming, biking, hiking, dancing, singing, whatever it is you like to do, painting, and family time, friends, and just structure work, within reasonable times. And like I said, you'll get a lot more done and be happier and be more creative that way. So that's why did I mention this? Oh, so yeah, just log a couple of things that you're going to do next time, and then tasks is like this backlog of other stuff that you'll eventually, it's just like a reminder for you to do. Milestones. I haven't used this much lately, but this is like a way for you to keep track of important accomplishments in your project. We use this in our team to kind of help people invoice stuff at the end of the month or quarter, at the end of the month, or also, you know, because at the end of the month, when people review, they might not remember all the different accomplishments they did, but this helps you feel good about it. And then plus at the end of the quarter, when you have like your own even personal performance review, you can look through all these and give yourself a nice pat on the back. So this is actually pretty important if you want to motivate yourself. And finally, lessons. So these missions are designed to be iterative. So you make version 1, version 2, or phase A, phase B. Then each time you want to see what you can do better next time. So yeah, that's our mission document template. We use it pretty heavily in our teamwork. So let me just get that structure into this public log that we're doing. So Control Z to suspend. So you see, like, you do get status, it's got this swap file. Let's add a git ignore. Why is this there? Okay. And let's ignore swap. Some operating systems also has an O in it, but let's just do swap. So now we do git status, it ignores it, add all of it. I like to use this -a, some people don't. This just means add everything that's been changed. So now it becomes green, it's ready to be committed. Let's commit it. Control L, commit. So commit, little message. Let's say document how to set up your development environment. Oh, making me do this stuff. So I'm showing you all this from scratch because I don't always set up a new environment that often. But this will help you this will help onboard new folks. Alright, so let's recommit. Committed. Now when we try to push, it's going to complain. So let's add our repository. I don't want to use this main. Just master is fine. Alright, push that. Okay. Oh, so we pushed it. Let's reload. we have it. We've committed. Oh, but it's not Markdown. So let's turn this into Markdown. So vim period to edit the enter file browser mode in Vim. Change our extension to Markdown. Looks like it's still being edited somewhere. Oh, I suspended it. Alright, so git add all. Commit it. Change extension to Markdown. Reload. Oh. And here we have it, our first public mission for the stream. It's Vim, Control W V to split side by side. If you want to split horizontal, Control W S. See, so. And then I have these shortcuts. Typically you have to press Control W and then L, but I set up my Vim configuration so that, you know, I can just press Control L. Another thing is, I notice a lot in people, you really want to get into the habit of, so you see, here I set up, so Control L maps to actually typing the orthodox Control W and then L. So let's say it speeds it up a little bit. If we didn't have this config, we'd have to do Control W L, Control W J H. Another thing is, I really want people to get comfortable, so get your fingers off of the arrow keys, get comfortable using this JKHL. Really speeds things up. So J down, K up, H, L. So get out of that arrow key. So right now we're upgrading this automation framework. We're making an open source MIT license. It was always MIT license. We're also opening up the rest of our editing service, which are mostly these Jupyter Lab extensions, but there's also some printer process and things like that. 2022, we're also building this data warehouse without the web interface. It's just a REST server. And we've got a linked publishing platform for your reports, as well as the analytics marketplace. So hopefully we're going to build the bulk of this live on this stream. A lot of work, but we'll get it done. So we have some docs for it. Kashri actually suggested writing the docs first, which I think is a good idea. So that's what we did. We wrote out the docs for the system. Not the whole, we didn't finish writing the docs, the whole system, but, you know, a lot of it. I wonder, did I include my docs about visibility? Yeah, I did. So this is new. We added this, spec, the visibility spec recently. And I should probably rename wizard into form. Have it as a to-do. So let's put on some music. It's getting late. Let's see. A playlist. I don't know if you can hear this music. It's an old track.
Me, Wade did it, it was smooth. Plotting while he gaming you. It's all your bitch. Dear Mr. Lawrence Tucker, right? You keep stressing me. Really? Fucking with a motherfucking mind. I figured you wanted to know, why we call them hoes bitches. Maybe this might help you understand. It ain't personal. No, strictly business, baby. Strictly business. So if you wonder why we call you bitch, you wonder why we call you bitch. If you wonder why we call you bitch, you wonder why we call you bitch.
Que suena y allí tú no estás. ¿Qué puedo hacer? Te quiero amar, noche a noche esperando por tu amor. ¿Cómo aguarda este loco corazón? ¿En dónde estás? En mi guión, en mis venas solo fluye este amor. Que sopla, huele el pensamiento allá donde estás. Este sentimiento es como un destello que quiero alcanzar. Tu amor, levanta